that feet thing is pretty gross.
The feet thing is really, really gross. I'm pretty sure you've seen some crazy things on flights.
I mean, yeah, but nothing like this. And that, I mean, wouldn't you be ashamed of getting, like, shamed by other passengers?
Feet probably is the #1 grossest thing that happens on flights because people like to get comfortable, so they take off their shoes. I actually saw
throwing the rest right behind you.
There's a correspondent at this network who I won't name, but she posted a picture of someone's feet on her armrest and was like, ew. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's pretty rude.
Right. Quite rude.
Got to be considerate on those.
Unbelievable that someone would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, moving on to a big story this morning, President Trump stepping up his attacks on 4 minority members of Congress, saying they can leave the country if they don't like it.
The 4 freshman lawmakers fired back, calling the president racist and xenophobic. They're accusing him of carrying out the agenda of white nationalists, and they're demanding he face impeachment.
While most Republicans remain silent, the president insists many people love what he's saying. ABC's Mona co-star Abdi has more on the fallout from these attacks. Hey, Mona.
Good morning, Janae. Good morning to you, Kenneth. The president's racist tweets seem to have unified the Democratic Party to rally behind these 4 congresswomen of color that the president still continues to attack. Now, it seems that it's the Republican Party that remains split now over whether to condemn or condone the president's behavior. The president reigniting his attacks on 4 freshman lawmakers that have been the target of his racist tweets.
They hate our country. They hate it, I think, with a passion.
And doubling down on his incendiary remarks, telling all 4 women of color to, quote, go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came. But 3 of the 4 born in New York, Michigan, and Connecticut.
Does it concern you that many people saw that tweet as racist and that white nationalist groups are finding common cause with you on that point?
It doesn't concern me because many people agree with me.
Only Ilhan Omar, a naturalized citizen, was born outside of the U.S. in Somalia. Omar hitting back on MSNBC's Rachel Maddow.
We're not going to allow him to continue his throwing of the bile of garbage that constantly comes out of his mouth.
And so did Congresswomen Rashida Tlaib, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Ayanna Pressley, calling his tweets a distraction and vowing to keep the focus on the president's policies.
I encourage the American people and all of us in this room and beyond to not take the bait.
That's why we fight for education for all children through college. And so we'll stay focused on our agenda.
The Republican Party remaining largely silent, only a handful coming forward to denounce the president's tweets.
The President of the United States has a noble and unique role to unite the country and to draw on all people, regardless of their race, their color, their national origin.
And House Democrats now plan to vote on a resolution that strongly condemns the president's tweets. Janae and Kenneth, Pelosi is now urging her Republican colleagues to join them in supporting that resolution.
And we will be watching that one closely. Mona, thank you for joining us. And as people on both sides of the aisle react to the president's attack, others are looking at the political strategy behind it.
The president's tweets have now prompted Democrats to rally around those 4 congresswomen with far-left views who have been trying to shake up their own party for months. This morning, Democrats are jumping to defend those 4 minority congresswomen urged by the president to leave the country.
I mean, it's a flat racist attack. He said they should go home. He should go home. He should go home. For real.
President Trump's attacks appear to galvanize the Democratic Party.
Democrats have been struggling with internal divisions. Those went away as soon as the president hit send on this tweet. This has united Democrats in condemnation and has reminded them of the stakes of what it means to be united in opposing this president.
And while some Republicans have tried to dodge the controversy altogether,
I hadn't read that, but I'll go check it out.
Others are speaking out. The party's only black senator, Tim Scott of South Carolina, called the president's remarks unacceptable personal attacks and racially offensive language. Maine Senator Susan Collins called the tweets way over the line. But some Trump supporters claim the tweets were not racist because he never explicitly mentioned race.
How can you say this is not demagoguery? How can you say that this is not playing on people's prejudices about people of color, about going back to your homeland, when in fact...
Because he didn't mention color.
Well, he doesn't have to mention color. Oh, you're right.
He honest.
So it's just
honest about
you're saying
when you disagree with people of color, That doesn't mean you disagree with them because of their color.
Analysts say the president's strategy is to rally his base, look strong on border control, and appear to be a political outsider.
You know, there's a percentage of the population that is going to agree with the president on this and also strongly disagree with how the media and how Democrats are going to frame this by calling it a racist tweet. As we go forward and report on this story and look for reaction from Republicans, there will be a good number of Americans who say that the president did not say anything wrong.
Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, who called Trump a bigot 3 years ago on the campaign trail, said Monday that the president should, quote, knock it down a notch. But when asked about Trump's tweets on Fox News, he accused the 4 Democratic Congresswomen of being communist.
Well, we all know that AOC and this crowd are a bunch of communists. They hate Israel. They hate our own country. They're calling the guards along our border, the Border Patrol agents, concentration camp guards. They're anti-Semitic. They're anti-America.
And analysts say a key part of the president's strategy is trying to make those 4 congresswomen the face of the Democratic Party.
Meanwhile, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has yet to address the president's tweets. He's expected to discuss them at a news conference today. Well, turning to other news, a judge says he will decide Thursday whether to grant bail to alleged sexual predator Jeffrey Epstein after a bombshell revelation about what was found in Epstein's safe.
To make their case that Epstein is a flight risk, prosecutors revealed that piles of cash, diamonds, and a passport with a Saudi address were found in his safe. They say the expired passport had Epstein's photo, but a different name. The wealthy financier is accused of abusing underage girls. 2 alleged victims confronted him in court. One said Epstein is too scary to walk the streets.
The most powerful testimony was not from any of the lawyers in there. It was from these 2 brave women who were prepared to step forward and talk.
Epstein's attorneys are fighting to keep him under house arrest in his New York mansion until his trial. They say Epstein is willing to pay up to $500 million to assure the judge he's not a flight risk.
A gas company employee is dead after an explosion destroyed this home in Southern California. 15 other people, including 3 firefighters, were injured. The explosion is blamed on a gas leak. Investigators say a contractor was working on the property in Murrieta, but didn't call to have the gas lines marked before he started digging. Now to a shocking confrontation in Ohio. A white security guard has pleaded not guilty after pulling a gun on a black police officer in uniform.
Lucas County Sheriff's Deputy Alan Gaston visited a local IRS office while he was on duty. The security guard told the officer he needed to put his weapon in his car, so the officer decided to leave the building instead. That's when the guard pointed his gun at the deputy.
Basically preparing myself to be shot at that moment, bracing for a shot. There's really no way to know how you're going to act when there's a gun pointed at you and when you think you're going to lose your life.
Deputy Gaston is now suing the guard and the security company. A young girl from Utah has quite a story to tell. Her artwork is now part of a police investigation.
Officers near Provo used sketches by 9-year-old Simone to identify a suspect in a string of mail thefts. Her parents say she saw the crooks, likes to draw, and drew the pictures for police.
They say her sketch of a truck was a carbon copy of a surveillance image of the suspect's vehicle. Police are confident they'll find the owner.
Pretty cool. Coming up, a miracle rescue. A California mother is found alive in the woods days after reportedly being chased by a man with a knife.
How she survived and the emotional reunion with her family next. We're back with an important milestone for the town of Paradise, California. Travis and Victoria Sinclair are the first people to move into a home rebuilt after last year's historic wildfire.
86 people died in the fire, which destroyed 11,000 homes. So far, that town has issued only 84 building permits.
And also, we have more on that California hiker found alive after she was missing for 4 days.
Cheryl Powell says she was forced to leave the trail she was on after a man started chasing her with a knife. This morning, an overjoyed Southern California family has been reunited in a hospital bed. Rescue teams found 60-year-old Cheryl Powell alive after missing for 4 days in a remote part of a national forest.
They found Cheryl alive? Yes. Oh my God!
This is the moment family members were told Powell had been found, dehydrated and exhausted, but resilient. Her son says Powell left their campsite to take her dog for a walk, and that's when she says she was chased by a man with a knife and got lost.
Chased her down the hill, and she ran away, and she was too scared to take the normal path because she thought he was following her, so that's why she wasn't where they expected her to be.
The experienced hiker's survival skills kicked in, but after a certain point, she could barely walk.
She found water and she ate a cactus, the inner fruit of it, and she, traveled at night mostly to, avoid too much dehydration.
Using thermal imaging from the air and dogs on the ground, search crews combed the dangerous terrain. On Monday, rescuers first found Miley, that 5-pound Yorkie poo, and a short time later, they found Powell.
It had been so long with nothing, and then all of a sudden they found the dog and they found my mom, right? Like pretty close afterwards.
Everything happened so fast. We're so happy.
Cheryl's family, including her husband of 42 years, saying they kept faith that she would be okay.
Nothing counts. Nothing in the world counts anymore. This is a miracle. I can't imagine this. This is a miracle of miracles.
And Cheryl's family expects her to be released from the hospital soon. Police have not commented on whether they're trying to find that man with the knife.
All right, let's go across the pond now to ABC's Julia McFarland in London, keeping an eye on the biggest international news. Julie, I know you're following breaking news on that American scientist murdered in Greece. So what are you learning?
Morning, Kenneth. Yes, exactly. There has been a new development in this mysterious murder that we have been following for the last couple of weeks. Suzanne Eaton, a woman in her 50s. She is from Oakland, California, and she was found murdered. Her body was found murdered in a World War II era bunker on the Greek island of Crete. Greek police have now made an arrest in the case, and they say that a 27-year-old man who has now confessed to her murder is now in police custody. He's not yet been charged, but what we understand from police on the island telling an ABC News team that a security camera that was at this network of tunnels made in the Second World War, security camera caught the suspect moving around after he had told police he'd never been to the area. So after they confronted with him with that, he broke down and then confessed to her killing.
Wow. And Julia, from Greece now to Italy, where police were raiding an alleged neo-Nazi group, made incredible discoveries: a missile and a stash of automatic weapons.
Absolutely, Janae. So this is part of an investigation into far-right groups that may have been fighting in the Donbass region in eastern Ukraine. Police have been investigating networks of far-right extremists. And in a raid in northern Italy, Turin police say that they discovered a cache of weapons, including an air-to-air missile. 3 people have been arrested. There was neo-Nazi propaganda that was also seized. And the police statement says that the missile in question, it was a French-made missile that had been used by the Qatari army, and that it was in working order. Extraordinary seizure there. Who knows what these guys were planning on doing with it. It's a little much, I think, but it's disturbing, really, to have something like that in the hands of these extremist groups.
Yeah, extremely disturbing when you have a firepower and a weapon that big. Something much lighter, I guess, unless you're attacked by this. Jellyfish off the coast of England, I heard. Now, I know you don't holiday, as we like to say, across the pond there in England much. You go to these faraway lands, Julia. But
no, we holiday, we don't vacation.
Right, you holiday. But I hear that off your coast, there's a giant jellyfish.
The size of a human.
Yeah, look at these extraordinary pictures. This is off the coast of Cornwall, the western end of the UK. These divers saw this jellyfish and they swam right next to it. Now, these guys, they are biologists, so they are people who know their stuff. They recognized this jellyfish as a gentle giant. It's 1.5 meters long. And Lizzie Daly, she said, she wasn't worried about it. It's got a very mild sting, she says, and it poses no threat to humans. And she said that it was such a serene, grounding experience swimming next to the animal, fish, mollusk. I don't know. She would. I don't. But she said that she would have reacted very differently if it had been a Portuguese man of war.
Right.
That has a fatal sting.
It does. And you have to
yeah.
do certain things, Julia, as you know, when it comes to this.
I think we've all seen that episode of Friends, Kenneth, and I don't think we need to revisit that.
Thank you
this
very
early in the morning.
much, Julia.
Well, Julia,
thank you.
As we say here in the U.S., it must be jelly because jam don't shake like that.
Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate it.
See you guys
And we'll leave you
tomorrow.
on that note.
Time now to check our notifications. Starting with two penguins who fought the law, all to find some sushi. So they found a home under a sushi stand in a train station in New Zealand. They had to cross a busy road to get there. They were removed, but they came back a few hours later and then they were taken back again. Experts say they may be looking for a place to nest and they'll probably be back. They just want some sushi.
Yep, they'll be back. All right, there's a new strategy to catch a gator on the loose in Chicago. The city has now hired a trapper from Florida. The gator, dubbed Chance the Snapper, has been hanging out in a lagoon in a city park. Officials believe it was illegally dumped there. The mayor ordered half the park closed in hopes that the peace and quiet will lure the gator to the surface.
We'll see. Near or far, wherever you are, everyone remembers that infamous scene at the end of Titanic when there's no room for Jack on the door with Rose. Or was there?
Was there?
Leonardo DiCaprio was promoting his upcoming movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, with co-stars Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie. And Leo was asked, could Jack have fit on that door?
Jack. History.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
No comment.
Did you mention it at the time? Were you like, should we make the door smaller? So
Like I said, I have no comment.
So funny. Although Leo seems to be staying tight-lipped on this one. More than 20 years after the movie came out, Kate Winslet has said in the past that she thinks there was room for Jack, and I'm with her.
There was room.
There
Definitely.
was.
All right, so if you're in the market for some gorgeous real estate, you can live like Riri, that's Rihanna, in her Hollywood home. Take a look. Her place includes 6 bedrooms, 8 full bathrooms, a billiard room, a fully equipped fitness suite, a movie theater, and an infinity spa over the pool.
Oh, so if you want to live like Riri in this 7,100 square foot home, you better have her money. It'll cost $35,000 per month to rent.
It's so beautiful, though.
So much money.
All right, up next, the most stressful cities in America.
Also ahead, we mark 50 years since Apollo 11's mission to the moon. We'll take you inside Mission Control in Houston next. We're back with the most and least stressful cities in the United States.
According to Wallet Hub, the top 5 are all in the Eastern time zone. Detroit and Cleveland are 1 and 2. Detroit is top 3 in financial, family, and health and safety stress. Newark, Baltimore, and Philadelphia round out the top 5.
The least stressful city surveyed was Fremont, California, near Silicon Valley. It's near the bottom in most categories, except when it comes to work stress.
Well, 50 years ago today, NASA flew to the moon with the Apollo 11 mission. So this morning, we're going back to Houston to Mission Control.
Thanks to National Geographic, we're getting a look at rare images from that mission, some that haven't been seen in years. David Muir reports from Houston.
It was 50 years ago this week. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, the Apollo 11 astronauts, suiting up as America waited. Would they do it? Would they set foot on the moon? A grand new goal first set by President John F. Kennedy.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
50 years ago, families across the country gathered in their living rooms, hundreds of millions watching all over the world.
The estimate is more than 1 million persons are in the immediate area.
Gathering along highways, beaches, setting up tents, children wearing space helmets, ready for launch in Florida. 9:32 a.m., Apollo 11 lifting off.
I can see her rising now.
After traveling 240,000 miles in 76 hours, Apollo 11 enters into a lunar orbit. The next day, the lunar module Eagle, with Armstrong and Aldrin inside, separates from the command module where Collins remained. Hours later, the Eagle begins its descent to the moon, and it did not come without alarm.
Program alarm. 1202. 1202.
A 1202 alarm means the lunar module's computer is overloaded. If the problem cannot be corrected, the landing will be aborted.
Give us a reading on the 1202 program alarm.
The control room silent, but they soon decide it's a go.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
Breathing again in Mission Control. They break into applause in Houston. some wiping away tears. ABC News showing Americans all over the country watching.
Here is Central Park in New York, where it's raining on the people who have assembled for, well, I guess you would call it a moon-in.
Cheers back on Earth, back in America. And then Neil Armstrong emerges.
I'm going to step off the limb now.
July 20th, 10:56 p.m., Neil Armstrong walks on the moon. And those famous words.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Back home, tears, and a little girl waving her American flag. In this image, we all now know of Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, the reflection in Aldrin's visor.
Yes. These are the chairs they sat in.
Yes.
And the consoles they sat in.
Yes.
Here in Houston, they show us where they have restored Apollo mission control. The consoles, the screens, the Apollo program on the monitors. Even the cigarettes in coffee mugs are right where they were left. And Sandra Tetley, who helped lead the project, takes us to the console where Flight Director Gene Kranz sat.
He tells an interesting story. He said after they landed on the moon, there was cheering and cajoling, and the whole viewing room was just cheering because they had landed on the moon.
And she shows us something else here in a room that now preserves all of that history made. She takes us to the console where the flight surgeon sat, the doctors. On the screen, a heartbeat.
They had Neil Armstrong's vital signs right in front of them the entire time.
Absolutely.
And Buzz.
Right.
And Mr. Collins.
Right.
And as they guided them from this room on that journey home, a message they left on the moon.
Underneath it says, "Dear men from the planet Earth, first step foot upon the moon, July 1969, AD. It came in peace for all mankind."
Our thanks to David for that piece. Very cool to see that recreated mission control with so many of the details still there. Also, Neil Armstrong's spacesuit will be on display at the Air and Space Museum.
Just recreating that room and talking about obviously what happened 50 years ago is just an incredible way to honor the feat by man and by woman, those who were behind the scenes to get those men into space, to the moon, and back home, because we know when it came to getting back home, it was just as big of a feat there.
Absolutely.
And just seeing like the fact they were smoking a lot, the coffee mugs, as you mentioned. We've seen this before in movies. That when it comes to the Apollo missions. And when I would see those guys smoking, it was stressful in there. I don't condone smoking because of the health risk, but I understand it for this when obviously the stress there. So.
Yeah, we'll stay with ABC News Live throughout the day for more events marking the Apollo 11th anniversary 50 years later.
Yeah, we'll also be live in Washington all day for more reaction and new fallout from President Trump's racist attack on those 4 minority congresswomen.
That's it for now. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.